Hey, today we've got Katie Bliss here with us from Capital Farm Credit, and we're going to be talking about anything and everything that you need to know about ag lending. So if that's what you're here for, stick around. We're getting after it right now. Now, Katie, you're a friend of this channel, but this channel is all about, and you know it, it's all about farm and ranch Texas lifestyle. The goods, the bads, the do's and the don'ts, and how do you transition from wherever you're at to coming in and finding your own little piece of heaven here on earth. So what we try to do is, if you like that, if that's what you're looking for, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, that way you're notified every time we put out a new video. And Katie, whenever people come, you're going to want them to what? You're going to want them to give us a call, send us a text message, send us an email. Heck, if you want to, send us a note via Pony Express. Any which way you want to reach out to us, we've got your back when moving here to the great state of Texas. Now let's get into it. So, first of all, Katie Bliss, right? Capital Farm Credit. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, I think you were talking to Drew and I just ahead of this. You're not from Texas, right, originally?
That's correct. So I actually grew up in upstate New York, right outside of Buffalo, on a dairy farm. And I got into agriculture at such a young age through 4-H and FFA, and decided to study agriculture in college.
And that college was?
Cornell University.
Cornell University.
And I graduated with an, science degree in agriculture. I took a lot of business classes and finance classes, and then I found myself working for Farm Credit in New York.
So you actually did this job in a completely different state, New York, right? Up in Long Island?
Correct.
Long Island?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
So I worked on Long Island for 2 years. Quite a different portfolio and whatnot from Texas.
So many farms being converted to Hampton homes and things like that out on Long Island, or farms being torn up and turned into developments?
So not so much development, but more so agricultural financing for businesses. So vineyards, equestrian farms, row crop operations.
That's good. We're going to get into
tourism.
Some of that.
Yeah. So it was very different. I definitely financed land while I was there.
Okay.
But the majority of what I did was supporting farmers on Long Island with business needs, operational needs, equipment needs, and so on.
And how did you get to Texas? What made you come here to Texas to do this?
Well, they say you got here as fast as you could.
Yeah, got here as fast as you could.
Yeah, I was just looking for something a little bit different than what I grew up knowing, and Texas had always kind of piqued my interest, so I got here as fast as I could. And I've been here for about 7 years now. All
right, great. So thank you for that background. That is awesome. So one of the questions that we get a lot, and as a matter of fact, I'll probably pull up the little slide on it, but one of the first questions we had, Run Big Run, who commented on one of our videos, and he's like, hey, I want to go get a place up north of Round Rock to run some cattle on, and what's the difference between getting an ag loan or getting a loan on a ranch versus a home mortgage?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the biggest actually mistakes that I see in what I do is people wanting to buy farm and ranch land, and they go to their banker or their lender or the mortgage company maybe that they use to buy their home, and think that they can get a loan to buy 100 or 200 acres with an ag exemption. It's just a lot of those banks and mortgage companies, they don't finance what I finance, what I can finance. So that's what Capital Farm Credit's here for. All
right, so you're the one that started. I was going to bring this up later, but you're the one that started this. I actually had some clients who love them, God bless them. They were moving out of the suburbs and wanted to find their little ranchette that had an ag exemption. I try to encourage them to go to a specialized lender. They're like, no, we've always gone with big bank, thing. They've always given me great rates. And sure enough, right when it came down to closing, first of all, it was a bad experience overall for them and for me. But when it came down to closing, sort of everything went sideways when it went into underwriting. Things like appraisals, and we'll talk about appraisals. But one of the biggest thing was they started to do the research and they were like, oh, there's this rollback taxes on this ag exempt, and they didn't really know how to deal with it. So they punted to my clients that said, you need to put all that money into escrow. So it ended up costing them a significant amount of money to put all those funds into escrow. So I know I threw a bunch at you there: appraisals, ag exemptions, rollback taxes, things like that. But it's a real life story of people going out there and making the mistake of, hey, I'm just going to go this with fill in the blank bank.
Exactly. So ag exemptions is a big thing, big topic, and I know you did a video here recently with the chief appraiser in Washington County. I'm
going to put a little link up there, so if you really want to jump over to that and see it, I'll put a link up so that you can catch it. But great, we went into real depth, about an hour-long discussion, but it flew by.
Yes, and that was a great video. I watched it myself, and she brought up some great I guess tips and topics, and so each county is different on how they handle their ag exemptions. So I recommend reaching out to the county, whatever county you're buying in. Reach out to the county and see what their requirements are, especially how you want or plan to operate a business or facilitate agriculture on your property. Just to make sure that you can maintain that ag exemption.
Right. So that was one of the, when you and I were talking, just sort of swapping stories ahead of this, you were like, oh no, don't ask me about rollback taxes, because I can't specifically answer that one, right? About how you guys would handle it. But you were mentioning to me that there was a tremendous amount of work up front that you guys already do. It's not like something that waits for some underwriter,
right? But
you guys are pretty much involved with your clients from the beginning, as far as what county they're doing it in, what kind of ag appraisal it already has, what their business plan is, so that you and the whole team all the way through have a good feeling and a good understanding of the risk management associated with it, right?
Exactly, yeah. So we do all of our underwriting up front before we give that pre-approval or conditional commitment letter. We're going to do everything up front, asking the questions, collecting financials, running credit, so that when when the customer is approved, everything has been sorted through, and then from there we go on to the appraisal side of things. And Capital Farm Credit, we actually have in-house appraisers who are so very knowledgeable, right, in their area. They're excellent at what they do, and just because agricultural land is very specialized, it's not your 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home in town. Right. You know, you can't always find comps, and maybe the comps that you have are a little bit older, so they have to be able to work those, and they really have to know what they're doing.
Now, also on the appraiser, so when you're talking about a traditional home mortgage or a traditional mortgage, one of the things they tell regular real estate agents is to not load up that non-realty items addendum, right? Like if you want to ask for the washer or the dryer, but in land and ranch terms, we call those accessories, right? You could have side-by-sides, tractors, hay equipment, deer feeders, deer blinds, all those things that are actually part of the transaction. Now, I think you were telling me what's unique about y'all's is that your appraisers know how to put that in and evaluate that as part of the deal. It doesn't start to freak them out if there's a whole bunch of accessories and improvements there, right?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So a lot of those items we consider personal property, so they're not part of the real estate, and some of those items cannot be valued. We can't value them as part of the real estate, though we realize that it's part of the real estate transaction. But items like fencing and, outbuildings and, those agricultural improvements, we can include in the value of the real estate appraisal.
Yep.
I actually just had a loan close a couple months ago, and it was very similar to that. The owners kind of just wanted out or needed out, and they had a lot of toys, I guess you would say, on the property, and they were being conveyed. Right. Exactly. And the appraisal ended up coming in short because there were so many items that they had given a little bit of value to, not a ton, but so thankfully both parties understood, and our appraiser was able, to put, top dollar on the land itself, and it all worked itself out. But those are definitely things to keep in mind if you find a ranch that has a lot of, tractors or ATVs and things like that. Definitely ask those questions up front and see how those will be handled in the transaction.
So I know that whenever I'm going in for a home loan or to buy a house, just a house, there's all sorts of weird things. Like, you don't have to do a full 20% down. They've got these 5% down, some PMI, and some different things to do. And also they have different rates than land and ranch. Can you sort of explain for someone who's never bought a land or never bought a ranch, what some of those key differences are?
Yeah, definitely. So when buying a home, you have many options for the down payment, 3%, 5%, 10%. With farm and ranch lending, we do require a larger down payment. So our down payment is going to be anywhere from 15 to 20%, potentially higher, depending on the risk of, that we have to take on.
Right. You guys do ag business loans too. So when you're talking about a ranch purchase, it's often evaluated and underwritten very more similar to a business purchase or a business loan than a personal loan, like a house loan.
Somewhat. I guess it depends on what it is that the customer is requesting. If it's just land, possibly with a house, I guess it's a similar process as purchasing a home. One benefit of working with us is we do not require nearly as much information as a mortgage underwriter would need.
And that's
I like to pride myself on that. So we do offer, though, agricultural business loans. So one thing with Capital Farm Credit, we like to think of ourselves as relationship lenders. We want to be there when you're looking for equipment loans or cattle loans, or if you want to start an ag business. We don't want to just finance the land and be done. We want to kind of be trusted advisors. And be able to work with you as the need arises.
So one of the things that was common back in the day for ag business is for a bunch of farmers, bunch of ranchers to come together and form what was known as a co-op or a cooperative. And one of the things when you and I first met that was sort of I'd love to say it was a surprise to me, but my family's been members of the co-op for decades now. But the fact that you as a financial institution have structured yourself to be a co-op. What does that mean and why?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That's a huge part of what we do. So the cooperative structure, when someone takes out a loan with us, they're actually going to become a stockholder or an owner of the company. And there's tremendous benefits of working with a company such as, Capital Farm Credit or any other co-op. But the biggest benefit with us, with the financing, is we actually return most all of our earnings back to our customers at the end of the year. So as long as we're earning a profit, we're giving those profits back to our customers. And that's something most people don't know. Even I explain it 3 or 4 times, and then the check comes the next year in the mail, and they call us up and they think it's some sort of scam or whatnot. And we have to remind them that no, this is your money. You are an owner of the company, and we're giving our earnings back to you.
Yeah, just as if you were a stockholder, and I'm not going to mention big New York bank, big San Francisco bank, big North Carolina bank, and you were a stock owner, and they gave you dividends at the end of the year. It's a very similar process, right?
Exactly the same. Yep.
Okay. And why did you guys? never mind. It's a silly question. You weren't there when they did it, but I was just asking, why that is. But the way that my dad and the way that my family, when we paid off the ranch, and he's like, well, one thing I'm gonna miss is I like that annual bonus I get at the end of the year.
I can somewhat answer that question. So farmers and ranchers, it's hard for them to, with the cyclical nature of their business, it's really hard for them to obtain financing. They have good years and then they have bad years, and that can go or be because of, weather, pandemics. There's a variety of reasons, natural disasters. So it's a very cyclical business, and it's really hard for them to obtain financing from a commercial bank or, conventional methods of financing. So the Farm Credit System was established over 100 years ago to specifically help rural America and farmers and ranchers. So it's
kind of like everybody's in it together.
Exactly.
Everybody's got skin in the game,
exactly,
if you will.
And that's exactly what our slogan is. Together we're better. So
we did not plan that. I'm not here to hype Capital Farm Credit. I'm here because Katie's a great person, and I know that whenever any of my clients have any troubles, I give her a call. So that was completely unintentional. So, we've covered some of these things: rollback taxes, underwriting. One of the other questions that came up, and it was in the law class that I had with JC Johnson, and it's just this theme that keeps coming up, and everybody has their own take on it, whether you do a 1 to 4, what makes it a ranch? Is it 2 acres? Is it 1 acre? Is it 100 acres? And just this sliding scale of, because most ranches have a house on it. When do you get involved? When should someone come to you and your organization rather than just going to a traditional lender? And just, by the way, we're talking a lot about traditional lending, not in a negative sense, just as you wouldn't use a hammer to try to cut a piece of wood. You wouldn't use a saw to try to nail in a nail. Using that right tool, that right lending vehicle for the right purpose. And so when would someone come to you? Is there a 5 acre, 10 acre, 20 acre, 30 acre cutoff? Or what's the sort of the criteria you guys use?
Yeah, so those were some good analogies. You couldn't have said it better, but we're going to classify land or a farm and ranch typically anywhere from 10 to 12 acres and up.
Okay.
Anything below that, and I believe most counties have the same guidelines. Anything under 10 acres, I don't want to say it's impossible, but the likelihood that you're going to have a true agriculture operation on less than 10 acres are very slim.
Diane was actually telling us that.
But bees.
Oh, bees.
Honeybees. I know you can do those, yes. So generally speaking, we're going to say anything that's 10 to 12 acres and up, we can classify as a small ag tract or like a farm and ranch. There are exceptions, of course. But typically, anything, if the property has an ag exemption, that's when you're going to probably start saying, well, can I use conventional lending, or maybe I should go to more of a specialized lender like Capital Farm Credit. And there's different, if there's a home on the property, say it's 10 acres with a home with an ag exemption, there are like conventional type options available, and we do have products for those. And then when you get up to like 20 acres and 30 acres, you should be more so looking for that specialized lender and kind of getting away from your conventional or lender or your bank.
So, you mentioned bees. What I was actually going to say is Diane had mentioned to me on the call, which took me surprised. If I get this wrong, please forgive me, but I want to say like Williamson County has now gone to where, which is just north of Austin, has gone to like 40 acres as a minimum requirement for ag appraisals. And so every county is really kind of, I don't want to say clamping down, but really evaluating the use and the purpose and how big and what their rules are, how they apply that law. You mentioned bees, and it got me thinking about, there's a lot of people out there that are watching this that want to buy land, want to have land, want to be able to go and do it, but don't know anything about running a cattle ranch, raising llamas, dealing with ostriches, doing all of this. Are you, from a financing standpoint, if they come in and they say, look, I don't know anything about this, but I feel pretty confident that I can lease this out to some local guy who wants to run hay, local guy or gal, sorry, who wants to run hay or run bees. That's one of the things that Diane brought up, is there are bee companies, local bee honeys, that will lease your land to run bees on. What's your take on buying something and then having it leased out, the surface rights for the ag purposes?
I think it's a great way to keep land in agriculture. A lot of my clientele, specifically because I'm located in the Houston area, are oil and gas professionals, doctors, lawyers coming out of Houston and want their piece of paradise, really, but they don't have the time, especially during the week, to get out to the property to maintain a cattle operation. So I think, recruiting local farmers and ranchers to keep the land in agriculture, I think is great, and it provides them with the ability to maintain that ag exemption on the property still. Okay,
and so from the ability to get the loan or do it, there's no pre-qualifications of someone having to be involved in it or know how to do it, or?
If they're going to be buying, a large cattle ranch and, the cattle is already out there and they're asking us maybe to finance the cattle as well, we might want to know that they have experience and they plan on running that operation, they plan on living there and running it themselves. Right. If they're just looking to purchase land and then maybe down the road purchase cattle, or have a local farmer or rancher put cattle, their own cattle on the property, we do want to know that, but it's not, we're not going to require them, to have 20 years of, experience with cattle. A lot of people, maybe this is just their first piece of land that they're owning and they want to get into it eventually, or maybe retire there. Yeah. But we don't require them to have the cattle or have experience. So that's a good question, though.
Okay. So it brought me to another one. I imagine, given that you're from Houston or work in this Houston area and you have people buying these weekend properties, these big estates, what's the weirdest deal, the strangest deal? Now, you can't tell any specifics, but what's the weirdest deal that you came across?
Oh.
The best story, water cooler story, no kidding, there I was.
Man, you really...
Put you on the spot?
You put me on the spot here.
You had some notes here, and so do you want to pull up, see if there's anything that we kind of missed, some of our big topics? I think we've covered up most of my little notes. So you guys think that I just run everything off my head? I have to have my little sheet of paper with my 1-2 words to keep me on track, to keep me going.
Yeah, so one of the questions you asked me beforehand were about some ag lending or just lending do's and don'ts for our customers. So,
okay, great.
So a few things to do beforehand is get pre-approved. Yeah. A lot of people, especially in this market right now, there's not a lot of inventory, but there's a lot of buyers. So when they come to us, most of our customers, they're ready to put an offer on a piece of property. Right. And we got a lot of those people. Oops, sorry. So get pre-approved and give us some time. Typically our pre-approval process is a couple days. Right now we're running, I don't want to say a couple weeks, but it could be a week. Well,
especially because you have so much that you do up front vis-a-vis a traditional lender. You go through some underwriting. Exactly. You really do. I don't want to call it a full trio, which is a title research, but you do a lot of work title ahead of time.
Yeah, exactly. So get pre-approved before, a lot of people, are going to be looking online and maybe have an area in mind, but they haven't really started the search yet. But I would just say get pre-approved. Yeah. The next key thing I would say is find a broker or an agent who is knowledgeable in farm and ranch, like Kerry. I see a lot of people, and I'm not saying it's wrong to use a residential agent. It's not wrong at all, but I've run into some issues in the past with people who, you know, come out of Houston with their agent, and they have a lot of questions for me that really a real estate agent should be answering, and I just can't answer it for them.
Right.
So
that's why you and I we try to do our initial Zoom calls together, because there's lots of questions that people ask me that I can't answer because it's a lending question. And then there's a lot of questions that you get asked that
Exactly.
follow me.
Yeah, and then the next thing I would say is prepare your financial package. So make sure you have the down payment that you're going to need. You know, keep good records of your finances. You know, have tax returns readily available, a personal financial statement. Kind of know, you know, what your balance sheet looks like. And then another thing is, well, I guess this goes into the don'ts, but don't max out your budget on the land purchase itself. You're going to need funds for, you know, monthly upkeep. You're going to need funds for, you know, improvements on the ranch, especially when you first purchase it. If it's an undeveloped piece of land or tract of land, you're going to possibly want to put a water well, a septic on it. So don't max out your budget just on the land purchase itself, because you're going to, you know, walk away from the closing table with no money in your bank account and have a bunch of stuff to do on the property.
Now, when you talk about that, it brought up a question that I didn't even think to ask earlier, and I should have. Say we're buying Ranch A, and Ranch A has a lot of improvements that need to be done to it. Can we roll the cost of some of those improvements into the initial loan so that you have funds available to improve fencing, do some weed treatment, do some hay overseeding, fertilizer, things like that?
Some of those things, yes, we can. Big things that I do often. I roll in funds for, you know, maybe construction, like a barn or a barn dominium. We can roll those items in. So yes, to generally answer your question, yes, we can roll those in. We have to know what you want to do, and you probably have to be able to provide us with, you know, plans and specs, or plans of what you plan to, how you plan to improve the property. Okay.
Cool. Was there any other notes that we needed to finish up?
I think that's all. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, look, I want to say thank you. This has been an awesome experience. I've enjoyed this so much. And I just want to tell you out there, if you stuck around this long and listened to all of this, you know you liked it. Go ahead and give us that thumbs up. Say yay. Hey, and I'm going to be doing a tour around coming up. I think I'm leaving next week, maybe the week after. Put down in the comments section what areas of Texas you want me to go to, what you want to see. No promises. And then the other thing is, if there was a question that we didn't cover today, put it in that comment section. We'll get back to you as soon as possible on it. And don't forget that when you're ready to grab your little piece of heaven here on earth, give us a call, send us a text message, send us an email. Heck, if you want to, send us a note via Pony Express. Any which way, we've got your back when moving here to Texas. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.